Now we're going to look at a vertical section of the human heart, which means the heart is cut from top to bottom along its vertical axis. So we are looking at the inner half of it. This is again the aorta. This is the right atrium. Look how it looks like an ear. It's connected to the right ventricle. This is the left atrium. It is connected to the left ventricle. So we have the atria and the ventricles. Now you can see that there is a divider between the right and the left side of the heart. This is the septum. It divides the right and left sides of the heart. This is the vena cava, specifically the superior vena cava, because we have a vena cava on the bottom. It is the inferior one, and it is right here. This is the pulmonary artery, which is the artery that takes blood from the heart to the lungs. This is the pulmonary vein, which brings the blood from the lungs back to the heart. And now, because we have a vertical section, we can look on the inside. We see that we have a bicuspid valve, which is like a gate or a doorway that separates the left atrium from the left ventricle. And on the right side, we also have a valve. This is the tricuspid valve, separating the right atrium from the right ventricle. As long as the valves are closed, blood will not go from the atria to the ventricles. Once these valves open, blood can flow. We have semilunar valves separating the right ventricle from the pulmonary artery. So the pulmonary vein is going to carry oxygenated blood from the lung to the heart, which is specifically to the left atrium. Now oxygenated blood collects in the left atrium. The left atrium contracts to force the bicuspid valve to open under the pressure. Once the bicuspid valve opens due to the contraction of the left atrium, blood, oxygenated blood specifically, will now flow from the left atrium to the left ventricle. Now we have oxygenated blood collected in the left ventricle, so the left ventricle contracts, and under the pressure it opens the semilunar valves found in the aorta so that blood can go from the left ventricle to the aorta, and now the aorta can carry oxygenated blood to the body organs. As for deoxygenated blood, it collects in the heart from the superior and inferior vena cava. It specifically collects in the right atrium. When the right atrium contracts, it is going to force this deoxygenated blood from the atrium into the ventricle through the tricuspid valve, which opens under the pressure of contraction. Then the right ventricle contracts, forcing this deoxygenated blood into the pulmonary artery through the semilunar valves. The pulmonary artery carries it to the lungs, where gas exchange happens, and this deoxygenated blood turns into oxygenated blood and then comes back to the heart into the left atrium through the pulmonary vein, and we have the same cycle happening all over again. This is what we mean when we say it's a closed circuit.